There are many topics Christians are hesitant to talk about, but avoiding them doesn't mean the questions disappear. One such question is this: is anal sex a sin? Does the Bible directly address it, or is it simply a personal choice between a husband and wife? Sexual morality is a major theme in the Bible, but many Christians struggle to understand where specific acts, like anal sex, fit into God's design for intimacy. Some say it's unnatural and forbidden, while others argue that if it's consensual within marriage, it's acceptable. So, what's the truth? Stay with me as we break it down biblically, historically, and spiritually. You might be surprised by what we uncover. To begin, we must ask, does the Bible explicitly mention anal sex? No direct mention, but related verses exist. The Bible does not explicitly mention the act of anal sex in the context of a heterosexual marriage. However, it does address sexual morality, purity, and unnatural relations. Topics that many believe include anal sex. Some verses often used in the discussion: Romans 1, verse 26 to 27, condemning unnatural relations. Because of this, God gave them over to shameful lusts. Even their women exchanged natural sexual relations for unnatural ones. In the same way, the men also abandoned natural relations with women and were inflamed with lust for one another. Men committed shameful acts with other men and received in themselves the due penalty for their error. This passage explicitly condemns homosexual relations, particularly male-male intercourse. Some interpret unnatural relations as referring only to homosexuality, while others argue it applies to any sexual act outside God's intended design. Leviticus 18, verse 22. Condemnation of male-male intercourse. Do not have sexual relations with a man as one does with a woman. That is detestable. This verse clearly forbids homosexual anal sex, but does it apply to married heterosexual couples? To fully understand the biblical stance, we must look at how anal sex was viewed in biblical times. In ancient cultures, anal sex was often associated with temple prostitution, 1 Kings 14, verse 24, Deuteronomy 23, verse 17. Pagan rituals in Egypt, Babylon, and Canaan. Sexual domination and abuse in warfare. Because of these associations, anal sex was strongly linked with immorality and idolatrous practices. This could be why the Bible speaks strongly against certain sexual behaviors that were common in pagan worship. But what about within a loving, committed Christian marriage? Does the Bible say it's sinful there too? To determine whether anal sex aligns with God's plan, let's explore why He created sex in the first place. 1. For procreation, Genesis 1, verse 28. Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. God designed sex to produce offspring, which anal sex does not facilitate. 2. Intimacy and bonding. 1 Corinthians 7, verse 3 to 5. The husband should fulfill his marital duty to his wife, and likewise the wife to her husband. Sex in marriage is about building unity and intimacy. 3. Pleasure, Song of Solomon, 7, verse 6 to 9. The Song of Solomon describes passionate, intimate, and pleasurable marital sex. The question is, does anal sex fall into this category of God-honoring pleasure? Some argue that anal sex is not part of God's design because the rectum is not designed for penetration. The Bible uses the term natural relations, Romans 1, verse 26 to 27. The potential for harm and discomfort goes against the biblical principle of treating our bodies as temples, 1 Corinthians 6, verse 19 to 20. The rectal lining is fragile, and the risk of infection or damage is higher than in vaginal sex. The Bible emphasizes care for the body, 1 Corinthians 6, verse 19. Could engaging in an act with higher health risks be seen as dishonoring God's temple? Now, the biggest question, is anal sex sinful if it happens within marriage? Arguments against it. It is not in line with God's natural design for sex. It is often associated with immorality and unnatural relations in Scripture. It poses health risks that may contradict biblical principles of bodily care. Arguments for it. The Bible never explicitly forbids it within marriage. 1 Corinthians 7, verse 4 to 5 teaches that spouses should mutually decide on sexual matters. If it is consensual, loving, and does not harm, some argue it is within Christian liberty. Romans 14, verse 23. So, is anal sex a sin? The Bible does not explicitly say, but it gives us principles to guide our decision. If it violates your conscience, don't do it. Romans 14, verse 23. If it causes harm, avoid it. 1 Corinthians 6, verse 19 to 20. If it is done in love, without harm, and within marriage, some believe it is a personal conviction issue. What do you think? Is anal sex always sinful, or does it depend on the context and intent? Drop a comment below and let's discuss. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more deep, thought-provoking Bible teachings.